regular session to order. We'll have the invocation given by Councilmember Austin Heffernan and the pledge of the flag. If you would please stand and join us.
Heavenly Father, as we gather again in this chamber this evening, we thank you for the opportunity we've been given to serve the citizens of Hagerstown. We pray that you will grant us wisdom and guidance in our work and decisions this evening. Clear our hearts and minds, open our eyes to your will, and grant us the strength, courage, and abiding passion to take action to positively improve the lives of all current and future residents of our city. In your honor we pray, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Quick announcements. We follow the rules of procedure adopted by this administration on December 20th, 2016. If you have a cell phone, please mute it. All correspondence for distribution to the elected officials should be provided to the city clerk. It should include a copy for the city clerk for inclusion in the official record. The next scheduled meetings are Tuesday, April 3rd, 10th, and 17th, or all work sessions at 4 p.m., and Tuesday, April 24th is a regular session at 7 p.m. Is getting me the list. Anybody sign? It's now time for citizen comments. There's no one signed up to speak during citizen comments, but if you wish to speak now, come to the podium, give us your name and address and your comments. Seeing none. Mayor and Council, or City Administrator comments, I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to thank Eric Dykey and Public Works team for the great job they did on the snow removal, and hopefully that is our last snowstorm,
yes,
as late in the year as it was, and also other departments pitched in as well. So it's a team effort when we have an event like that. So just pass my thanks on to them.
Good. Thank you.
That's all, Mayor.
We'll start with you, Councilmember McIntyre.
So recently I was able to go on a ride-along with HPD. I did a 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift, way past my bedtime. And I think that, you think you know what's going on, but when you see the officers and what they deal with and having to maintain composure and how they're treated and the things that are going on in our city and how they work very, very hard to keep us safe and the experience was eye-opening. And Chief, I, commend you on your ability to do what you do every day and for all the officers that do the same thing. So thank you, and thank you for letting me, participate. And Chief, I'm coming for you next. So thanks.
Mayor, I just would like to acknowledge some folks we have in our audience with us, some old friends. It's wonderful to see Senator and Councilman Munson back. Don, it's very good seeing you. And as I was just telling Shelley, we didn't really tell her that her time's about expired and you're coming back. So it's good to see you back, Don. Good you're feeling well, and it's always good to see Bruce Poole in the audience, the former delegate and House Majority Leader or Minority? Majority, that's what I thought, and head of the Democratic Central Committee, and it's good seeing you, Bruce. And for old friends that we haven't seen in a while, which I apologize to him because he must have gotten demoted, CJ, it's good to have you back in the audience. and that's all I have to say, Mayor.
Thank you. Let's go.
I just wanted to say March has been a busy month around Hagerstown. We've had a ton of events, and thank you to Main Street for organizing the Sweets on the Streets. They're having a volunteer recruitment event in May, and I hope that everyone that always says, "What can I do to help?" shows up to that event. And I hope that the number of events that we've had over the past several weeks is an indication of what is happening in the future. It's very good, and I'll talk about the press conference at the opioid part. So.
I'm sorry?
I'll talk about the press conference when we get to the opioid part.
I'll talk about it now.
All right.
Wanted to thank Emily for the press conference today and the I think it's a very exciting time for the city trying to deal with this horrendous problem that not only our city has, all cities are having the same issues. And this is a very bold, dramatic step that I think we're taking, and I'm very pleased that we're doing it.
Mr. Osha?
I have 5 items this evening, the first of which is to thank the fire department for their response on the fire that occurred South Potomac the other week, where the young girl was saved from the house or the apartment. I'm familiar with that property, I was walking by it, and so I know that staff sent us some additional information regarding the ownership and the occupancy and the management of that home, and some issues that we've had there in the past. And I would only say that that's a perfectly good example to share with the community of exactly those types of code related issues that we face, not just in code enforcement or permits, but also with the safety of the fire department and others within city service that have to respond to those types of properties. And I'll say the same thing I said in my email in response to that update from staff. If there's ever occasion where a property owner should be criminally charged for the potential hazard that could have been created, which could have been worse for a property and their negligence of it, that's a prime example. And so the second, and just to finish that thought, and that's exactly one of the reasons that I would never venture to hand our paid fire service over to the county, given the dynamic differences that we approach that service with at this table and at the county table. The second item is a little more light note. We came down over the weekend. I asked the kids where they wanted to eat, and of course they wanted to come downtown. That was our first experience on the parking deck, and I'd never parked on the top floor of the university parking deck, which is our older one. But you got to get on the elevator, you get to see out the glass, and so I guess I don't usually think of those things, and the top wasn't plowed, but they loved the fact that there was snow up top. And it was just, after sort of a week of seeing posts on social media and things like that of bad things, it's good to have those reminders of the actual good experiences that do exist. And nobody confronted us in the parking deck. The elevator worked just fine, although one of the kids was a little skeptical of that. And we made it to and from a good restaurant and a good experience in the evening just fine. So just wanted to note that. The other 3 items that I have, I'll just take in turn. The first is I would like to have a conversation among the mayor and council at some point if there is a majority interested in the recent State of the City event. This is not the first occasion in which I've participated and attended that event where you sort of provide this video of what I'll call the positive attributes of things that you're working on to improve the condition of the city, and you exemplify sort of its state of affairs. And then you get up there and you sit down and you've got 8 less than positive, less than pointed, questions that folks want a 30-second answer to, half of which have nothing to do with what we do here and the city, and most of which are just ill-informed questions of negativity to begin with. And I think after those 8 ridiculous questions of the audience, the final question is, what are you going to do to improve the positivity of the city? And I'm thinking the first thing I wouldn't do is ask 8 ridiculous questions, all of a negative tone. And so I just think that we need to be better staged at setting that tone for that portion of the process in that interaction, because I don't think it greatly benefits us and that effort. The second item is the letter that we submitted on March 6, 2018 to the Stadium Authority. I know that we've had some communication via email among the mayor and council and staff and I would request that that be placed on a public agenda at the next opportune moment, as was, I believe, requested by a majority of council for deliberation. I know that the letter has apparently went out to the Stadium Authority, but I don't think that the council has adequately deliberated on that issue for doing so.
I would
And,
only tell you to refer to the meeting of December 12th.
you know,
And,
that's good, because I did do that.
okay,
And I watched it, and if you watch at, from a point, from about 25 minutes into that meeting to the 28th minute, yourself and Lou refer in that meeting that the reason for submitting the letter to the Stadium Authority is under the auspices that the Stadium Authority is going to incur the cost of that, and therefore it would be an advantage to reach out and see if they would incur that, and if they would include other opportunities, and then if not, then they'd come back to us. And so that was reconfirmed, if you will, at about the 37th minute, right before Mr. Spedden got up and explained how there's a, sort of an interest of deal on the table to buy the team at about the 42nd minute. And then once again at about the 43rd minute of that meeting, council, by consensus, confirms that the intent of sending that letter is because it is not associated with an expense that would be incurred by the city. So I'd be more than happy to review that with council, and I'd love to have that conversation about exactly what's expected of the city, because when I read the letter, it clearly quantifies an amount of $36,000 that the city would be committed for without reassurance of any specific entities that would be required through any agreements that I'm aware of to participate in that process beyond those that we've received in email communication.
and I'm pretty sure that I've explained over and over again that the Maryland Stadium Authority Board actually meets in April.
They do.
They will make their decision at that point in time whether or not to conduct the study. They will inform us of that, and then at that time, mayor and council has to decide if they want to participate, and it'll come to the council table, whether they want to participate or not in helping to fund whatever cost of a study that isn't covered by their entities.
And
Bottom line.
I'm fine with that, but the reality is, there was no commitment by this body to send any letter that included an amount of commitment by the city, so we should.
There is
remove-
not an amount of a commitment by the city there anywhere, Kristen.
I mean, I can read the specific sentence in which includes the 36,000, that it says the city will pay, actually uses the word, the study will cost 36,130.
$36,120, right?
And will be paid in full by the city of Hagerstown. That's the sentence in this letter that certainly changes the context of which the conversation we had in December, which is we were doing this so that the Stadium Authority would pick up the tab for this potential study.
We were doing, the
not the
first
city.
letter was a request to them to ask them to do the
right.
study and include it in a cost of the study.
That's right.
Or anything else that happens. Then we found out that we had to associate a number with that period. That's the only reason 36,120 is there.
And at the
And
37
again, nothing will happen until the Stadium Authority says yes or no to doing a study. It'll come back to this body. This body will then decide if they want to participate at all in the cost of the study.
But in the meeting, what was decided by the majority of this council was that once the Stadium Authority gave a response, that response would come back to this body to evaluate. That response came back. It was not evaluated by this body. It was not evaluated by this body. A letter, a separate and different letter went back without that evaluation being brought back to the council table.
There was never a
occurring.
response back from the Maryland Stadium Authority whether they would do a study or not.
Okay, well, again, I would ask that council consider placing it on a public agenda in the context of a letter that's been committed to now that includes an amount that should not be included in the letter. And if there's a majority that don't want to do that, and want the letter to sit as been posited here, then that's fine, but I don't sit in that position of support And I do not believe that that's reflective of the conversation that I reviewed in the minutes of that meeting that we had.
Anything else?
Yes. One last item is the Sportsplex, which has obviously gotten some dynamic attention in the last couple of weeks. You know, I don't know how long, and Senator Munson, I'm glad you're sitting out there this evening, especially as a former council member. I mean, we've been batting that around in a very public stage for quite some time now, and it seems like you know, as soon as we say it and we move to hire a consultant to analyze that issue and you know, appear to sort of move the ball on that, you know, just in the last 2 weeks since that's happened, suddenly the county you know, elaborates on an idea it has. I know Mr. Daughtridge has recently elaborated on an idea that he has, and I just find it odd that and more than coincidental, that in a 2-week time frame subsequent to our decision to sort of move the ball on that issue, other entities now come forward in some public manner to do so as well. And I have to wonder, you know, if the county has really had an idea like this on the table to the degree it's actually now identified funding without the public's knowledge, and identified a conceptual drawing without the public's knowledge, and identified a piece of property without the public's knowledge, whether their phones work or not over the last 6 months between City Hall and the County Administration Building, to let us know, since we've been talking about it publicly, that they've been also thinking about it as well. And so I find that a bit disingenuous and frankly a bit of a revelation that I've been saying for the last 2 years. You know, it's not a matter of if this idea happens, it's a matter of when. And we should be the entity that controls the when, the where, the how, and the what for this project. And I hope that we maintain that course moving ahead.
I have a comment, if I can add on his comments, regarding the stadium and the indoor sportsplex. The political crap that surrounds both of these is so frustrating. I mean, I had no idea any of this stuff happens when I took office, and it's like, it's a bunch of high school dramatic teenagers. I mean, it's all the time. We hear this group has had this meeting about the stadium, and then this group has had a meeting about the stadium and this. Then we find out the county's working on an indoor sportsplex, so we're working on an indoor sports. Like, what does it take to get everyone sitting at the same table to talk? We've been talking about a baseball stadium since I was in elementary school. Are we gonna do it, or are we not gonna do it? Like, I feel like we need a study to study how many studies we can have. Like, it's time to
been
just
done.
draw the line and say, are we doing a stadium or not? And are we doing an indoor sportsplex or not? And who's doing it? Is the county gonna talk to us? Is Rich Daughtridge doing it? Is the city doing it? Who's doing it? It's so frustrating. It's like an email and a phone call a day. Hey, did you hear that the Greater Hagerstown organization is working on this? Or, hey, did you hear that this group? I mean, why are we having all these separate conversations? Why are we not on board? Why is the city administrator not on board? Why is the county not on board? Like, we need to have a conversation with all parties involved, because this whole like back and forth, finding out on Herald Mail, and then this constant conversation of a baseball stadium year after year after year. I would like this administration to put an end to the baseball stadium, whether we build it or we just don't. Like, either way. I mean, this constant back and forth of both of these things is so frustrating. So, God, if you're listening and you're considering a baseball stadium or an indoor sportsplex in Washington County, like, send an email. Can we set up a meeting, a ad hoc committee, something to just put an end to the back and forth? I mean, we just need to do it or not do it.
Makes perfect sense.
Okay, anybody else before we move on? All right, it's my turn. We got one thing. I'm gonna talk about the Blues Fest a little bit. It is, you have until April 1st to, actually you have through Saturday, March 31st, to buy your tickets to Blues Fest this year. There'll be 6 bands. Tickets are only $25, and that's for the Saturday event. The Friday event is free. The Saturday lineup is Billy Branch and the Sons of Blues, Biscuit Miller and the Mix, Papa Chubby, Joanna Connor, Albert Castiglia, and Ghost Town Blues Band. And Friday night again is a free community event with Doug Deming and the Jewel Tones and Low Society. So call now if you want to get your tickets at $25, because if not, come April 1st, they cost $30 for the Saturday event. So make a phone call. All right, moving on. Adoption of the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move for the approval of minutes as presented for the mayor and council meetings held on February 6, 13, 20, and 27, all of 2018.
Second.
Emily seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move that all the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Introduction of an ordinance amending and supplementing existing City of Hagerstown general obligation borrowing authority for the water system purposes.
Yeah, skip one, Mayor.
I did?
Yeah, the
The land management code.
overlay. Unfinished business.
Okay, approval of an ordinance, land management code amendments, adoption of a local conversion district overlay to the zoning map of the City of Hagerstown.
I hereby move that the mayor and city council approve an ordinance to amend chapter 140 land management code of the city code. This amendment shall amend the zoning map for the purpose of applying a local conversion district overlay to the property located on the northwest corner of the intersection of Potomac Avenue and Magnolia Avenue pursuant to rezoning case ZM-2017-02, Eklund Family LLC, and in accordance with the attached ordinance and attached findings of fact be amended to reflect the change.
Second.
Discussion?
I just want to say, since you're here, thank you for your investment. I drove by the other day and I pictured in my head what it's going to look like, so thank you.
Yeah, and as we said, as we were speaking earlier, I'm looking very forward to driving down Potomac and seeing the changes.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Introduction of an ordinance amending and supplementing existing City of Hagerstown general obligation borrowing authority for water system purposes.
Mr. Mayor, I move to introduce an enabling ordinance authorizing the City of Hagerstown to issue and sell from time to time upon its full faith and credit general obligation bonds in one or more series in an aggregate or original principal amount not to exceed $1.545 million. Proceeds of the bonds will be used to pay costs of the projects identified in Section 3B of the ordinance. Proceeds par amount are allocated by funds as follows: General Fund, $1.265 million, Parking Fund, $0.28 million, for a total of $1.545 million. That portion of principal interest and any allocated issuance costs associated with the parking fund will be payable in the first instance from revenues accounted for in such fund, but the bonds will be backed by a pledge of the city's full faith and credit and unlimited taxing power. The staff is hereby directed to work with the city's financial advisor and bond counsel to determine whether a direct purchase transaction for the bonds as contemplated by the ordinance remains the best financing option for the city, and to develop the necessary detailed resolution and other documents required to prepare for the sale of the bonds as contemplated by the ordinance, including any request for proposal to determine the purchaser. As specified in the ordinance, details and authorizations regarding the amount, timing, final method of sale or sales, and other sale details will be outlined in a detailed resolution to be presented to this body for approval at a future date prior to the issuance of the bonds. The ordinance also authorizes the issuance and sale from time to time upon the city's full faith and credit of one general obligation bond anticipation notes in one or more series in an aggregate original principal amount not to exceed $1.545 million, to fund project costs on an interim basis, and two, general obligation refunding bonds in an aggregate original principal amount not to exceed 130% of the aggregate principal amount of the bonds being refunded in order to reduce debt service costs or achieve debt service restructuring. Details of any such general obligation bond anticipation notes or general obligation refunding bonds are authorized to be determined or provided by the resolution. Any series of such general obligation bonds, bond anticipation notes, or refunding bonds may be issued as a single bond.
Second.
Discussion.
I think you should read that
All in
again.
favor?
Aye.
All right, now we're finally gonna do an introduction of an ordinance amending to supplementing existing City of Hagerstown general obligation borrowing authority for water system purposes.
No.
No,
that
we
was
just did
general
general
obligation.
obligation bonds.
Mayor had it backwards.
Water.
I had it backwards. Kristen had it right.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move to introduce an ordinance amending and supplementing ordinance number 016-15, passed by the council on July 26, 2016, approved by the mayor on July 26, 2016, and effective on August 26, 2016. Ordinance number 0-16-15. In order to increase the maximum aggregate principal amount of each of the general obligation bonds and the general obligation bond anticipation notes authorized to be issued pursuant to ordinance number 016-15, and referenced, and I'm assuming that's a 0 and not an O, and referenced to therein respectively as the bonds and the bands, in order to finance, reimburse, or refinance costs of two projects identified in the fiscal year 2017 budget as one RC Wilson traveling screen replacement and two pump station improvements collectively identified in ordinance number 0-16-15, together with related cost as the project from $1 million to $1,100,000. The project was delayed, project costs have increased in the Maryland Water Quality Administration. The administration recently indicated they can lend the city $1,021,280 for project purposes. The 2018 ordinance authorizes up to $1,100,000 to be borrowed for both interim financing and permanent financing purposes in case the administration determines it can lend the city more than $1,021,280. The 2018 ordinance also expands the rules of construction set forth in Section 1 of Ordinance Number 0-16-15. Debt service payable on any bonds, bands, or refunding bonds authorized by Ordinance Number 0-16-15, as amended and supplemented by the 2018 ordinance, will remain payable in the first instance from water supply system revenues and, to the extent required by the applicable purchaser, wastewater system revenues. All to the extent any such revenues are available for such purpose, but any such obligations will be backed by a pledge of the city's full faith and credit and unlimited taxing power. It is anticipated that no bans will be necessary and that the only loan funding for project purposes will be provided by the administration, which will be evidenced by one or more series of bonds issued by the city to the administration. Staff is hereby directed to work with the city's bond counsel to develop the necessary detailed resolutions and other documents required to prepare for the sale to the administration of the bonds contemplated by ordinance number 0-16-15 as amended and supplemented. As specified in ordinance number 0-16-15, details and authorizations regarding the final borrowed amount, timing, amortization, and other details will be outlined in a detailed resolution to be presented to this body for approval at a future date prior to the issuance of any bonds.
Second.
Okay.
It's scary to think about the detailed resolution.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Introduction of an ordinance amending and supplementing existing, wait a minute.
We're to the,
Approval of a resolution authorizing approval directing the employment of certain law firms to represent the city in potential litigation against contributors of opioid addiction crisis.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for mayor and council approval of a resolution authorizing the city to enter into legal services agreement to represent the city in potential litigation against contributors of the opioid addiction crisis. This agreement retains the law firm Levin, Papantonio, Thomas, Mitchell, Rafferty, and Proctor, PA, on a contingent fee basis to pursue all civil remedies against those in the chain of distribution of prescription opiates responsible for the opioid epidemic which is plaguing Hagerstown.
Second.
And give that to Shelley.
Thank you.
Discussion?
I just wanted to address some of the issues that I read online already from the press conference earlier. There is some outcry that the city doesn't have any money to do anything, but yet we're paying for attorneys for the opioid crisis. So just to reread, since no one apparently reads the articles, they just read headlines. The law firm is acting on a contingent fee basis. If we do not receive any money in the lawsuit, they do not either. If we receive money, they will then get paid. Did I get that right?
That is correct.
All right. And, I'm sorry?
Expenses, the burden of the law firm as well.
Thank you. So your tax dollars are not being spent on this, but there is a chance that this will produce money that we can put into our city to make it better, which is what everyone would like. So please, I just want to reiterate that again and again and again. If you see that comment, your tax dollars are not being spent on this, but there's an opportunity that we will get much needed help in education. Also, I just wanted to say thank you for Aaron for putting a press conference together so quickly and for dealing with my text messages until 12:30 last night, sorry. And thank you to Chief Brito, Chief Lohr, Captain Brown from CRS, and yeah, to everyone who attended today. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have a comment. While I will certainly support this motion, I want to note again for the record, as I have with council, that I am opposed to the use of at least one of the law firms listed in those listed in this document.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approve an amendment to the memorandum of understanding with the Washington County Historical Trust.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the approval of an amendment to the MOU with the Washington County Historical Trust for the use and restoration of the stone dwelling known as the Sailor House located in Kiwanis Park. The amendment extends the time frame for the WCHT to complete renovations.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Summer play camp operations.
Mr. Mayor, who would move for the approval of resolutions to authorize the execution of contracts with the Robert W. Johnson Community Center, Inc., Hagerstown YMCA, and Girls, Inc. of the Washington County to operate summer play camps for the 2018 season from June 18th through August 11th. Each camp will serve approximately 60 to 80 youth per day. Funding is from the Parks and Recreation operating budget.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of resolution to enter an operating agreement with the Hagerstown Ice Amateur Athletic Association, Inc.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move to approve an agreement with Hagerstown Ice Amateur Athletic Association Incorporated for the operation and management of the Hagerstown Ice and Sports Complex. This operating agreement extends the terms of operation from April 1, 2018 through June 30, 2024. The new operating agreement also provides terms and conditions for the purchase of a new ice resurfacer by HIAAA.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of contract for financial market feasibility study for the indoor sports complex.
Mr. Mayor, we move for the approval of a contract with Victus Advisors to conduct the first phase of the financial and market feasibility study in the amount not to exceed $30,000. Funding is per the FY18 capital budget. This study will quantify demand and growth potential of indoor sports by engaging the community stakeholders.
Second.
Second.
Let's give it a loop. Any discussion? Sure we don't want to table this till we get everybody in the same room and have a conversation in front of this thing. All in favor?
Be done.
Aye.
Motion carries. Appalachian Regional Commission fiscal year 19 project funding request.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that the mayor and council authorize the submission of the following projects to the county commissioners for funding from the fiscal year 2019 Appalachian Regional Commission ARC grant. Number one, professional court widening, requesting $500,000 in ARC funds. And number two, life safety code upgrades fund, requesting $250,000 in ARC funds.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of a mutual aid agreement with the Washington County Sheriff's Department and the Frederick County Sheriff's Office.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move for mayor and council approval of mutual aid agreement with the Washington County Sheriff's Office and the Frederick County Sheriff's Office, city to provide in cases of emergencies assistance consistent with resources, specialized units, equipment, and/or law enforcement personnel. The only potential cost to the city of Hagerstown will be personnel costs during the deployment incident.
Second.
is, I read that, but I don't know if it made sense. Are we talking about the Frederick County Sheriff's Office or Frederick City Police? It says Frederick County Sheriff's Office City.
You're correct, Councilmember. It's Frederick County Sheriff's Office.
Okay.
If you remember at a previous council.
That's what I thought.
And your question was, are we going to have the Frederick County Sheriff's Office involved? And we are, and that's why you have that
Okay.
document there.
Thank you.
Okay, Austin seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval exemption for city code charter 155 noise ordinance. No, approval of promissory note for repayment of funds from Hagerstown Mezzanine Project LLC.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the approval of a promissory note with Hagerstown Mezzanine Project LLC to provide terms for the repayment of city funds used to demolish a structure located at 149 West Washington Street. The property is owned by Hagerstown Mezzanine Project LLC.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of exemption from city code chapter 155 noise.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the approval of an exemption from the City Code, Chapter 155 noise. This exemption is being granted in accordance with Section 155-5M to the City Chapel and Pastor Zachary Camp for events on Saturday, March 31st, 2018, from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m., and events on Saturdays from April 7th, 2018 to November 3rd, 2018, from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at 227 East Washington Street, corner of East Washington Street and Cannon Avenue.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Amendment to the fiscal year 18 CDBG Annual Action Plan, creation of a new activity for Roslyn Building rehabilitation.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the mayor and city council to amend the FY18 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan in order to create a new activity, Roslyn Building Rehabilitation. $200,000 of CDBG funding will be allocated for this activity to replace the Roslyn Building roof and windows. Details of the amendment are attached.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Hagerstown and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for mayor and council approval of a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. There's no cost to the city of Hagerstown to enter into the memorandum of understanding. Overtime pay and other expenses may be reimbursed by the federal government of the United States.
Second.
Discussion?
Is this a fairly typical agreement, something unique to this community?
Very typical.
Something new by the ATF?
Very typical. We have them with the FBI, we have them with the DEA, we have them with the ATF. It's no cost. The ATF was a key partner of ours when we ran our operation back in September through most of 17, our gang intervention. So they're very good partners of ours. They're offering us additional resources, and it's very important for us as a community to reach out and have those resources.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you.